and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now we have a 2009 1.9 CD Ti Opel or Vauxhall Zafira behind us, depending where this happens to be a Vauxhall, even though we're in Ireland, but you get the idea, Opel/Vauxhall. Now, the first video we did on is how to drive with no clutch. The clutch is gone in this. Well, we now know what's wrong with this. The slave cylinder's gone. So we showed you how to drive the car if this happens to you, you can get you back home. In the second video, we showed you how to find the problem. Now we're fixing it. Now, I have a feeling this video is going to get a lot of hate because we're only replacing the cylinder. Now, yes, obviously, in the perfect world, it is best to replace everything because once your cylinder's gone, you know your clutch is worn. But let's go back to the real world for a second. So before you YouTube fucking wankers decide to get on the old keyboard and say, oh, the customer's wrong, or I'm doing it wrong, I shouldn't do it this way, the blah, 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 and all this. It's 600 euros saving doing it this way. Is it the correct way? No. But in the real world, we're coming close to Christmas, they've got a young family, they need the car back on the road for as cheap as possible, and they have to worry about other things happening further down the line. It's the real world, people. So rather than trying to be clever, thinking you know better and you wouldn't do this and blah blah and all this sort of stuff, just you might as well fuck off now. Simples. So what we're going to do is just going to replace the servo cylinder, slave cylinder even. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and film as much as possible, but it is very difficult doing clutches. People like my clutch videos for some reason, which is bloody annoying because they're bloody difficult to film because you just can't get in everywhere. So let's do a few things on the top before we go on the bottom. Sorty. Right, this isn't going to be a how-to video. This is just going to be kind of a rough idea of the sort of things you're going to have to do when you do a clutch on one of these. We're not doing the full clutch, but we're just doing part of it. But at least it'll give you an idea of kind of where to go. I did start filming it and then realised it's just not going to happen. The job was a nightmare. Everything was going wrong. And yeah, so that's Milo. Shut up. Milo, there you go. And so it's not a how-to video. It's just going to show you roughly kind of, sort of, maybe-ish, whatever you might get into. Sorted. So here are the tools I use. I used a light, a mirror, some lever bars, a couple of them, or a plethora of them, half-inch gun, hubby scope, finger scope, and my nut driver, which has with a T25 torque on it. And we also use 2 transmission jacks, 2 of them bad boys. Some of these tools might be duplicated a couple of times because I left it up on the car when it was on the lift, or you know, whatever, but you get the idea. We used a hammer, cutters, electric impact, well that's not actually impact, it's just a ratchet, half-inch long extender, pliers for stopping all the brake fluid leaking out even though it was already gone anyway, couple of different flat-bladed screwdrivers, 32mm long socket, 19mm long socket, 18mm long socket. These are 13mm, that's an extra long 3/8, 13mm, 16mm spanner, 14mm spanner, 18mm spanner, 13mm spanner, 11mm spanner, 15mm spanner, 13mm ratchet spanner, 17mm ultra thin spanner, 10mm Allen key, 9mm 12-sided, long extended bar 3/8 as well, medium extension bar 3/8, short extension bar 3/8, needle nose vice grips, short stubby 13mm spanner and 10mm spanner. Another long extension, this is a lockable extension, but it's still just because I couldn't find the other one or it was on the top of the car. That's half-inch as well. Another medium 3/8, a magnet, medium's half-inch, we're done the 13, medium 10mm half-inch socket because it's bigger than the ordinary one, 10mm 3/8, that is 12-sided, 13mm 3/8, T30 3/8, E18 half-inch, E18 3/8, that's an 18mm half-inch, This looks like a 7 or 6, 7 mil, 3/8, 13 mil, ½ inch, small extension, ½ inch, E16, ½ inch, 16 mil, 3/8, T45, which is ½ inch, 6 mil Allen key, 16 mil, ½ inch, 13 mil, 3/8, didn't use that one, and E12, ½ inch. Oh, and a T20. So that's what I used for this job. Like I said, some of this stuff you don't need, like battery powered stuff you can get away without using that. Some of it I have repeated because I left it on top of the car or whatever reasons. Sorted. Right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take off the battery and a few other things around here so I can see the engine mount or the gearbox mount, because that's what we need to get to. I'm not going to take the gearbox mount off yet, but I just need to remove the battery. The battery tray looks like the control box down there for the heater plugs. We might need to take off this, but hopefully not. That's the expansion bottle. But we need to get down there and see what's going on. There's no point me filming taking off a battery. A couple of 10 mils there, 13 mil down there to actually release the battery. Most probably 12s or 13 mils to take off the battery tray. Once I get to that stage, we'll get on the lift, we'll take the wheels off, take the drive shafts off, drain the oil first, obviously. And yeah, sorted. Right, so this is the problem with filming gearboxes. As you can see, there's just, well, you can't see anything, so you can't see. We had 3 13 mils, 1, 2, and 3, and a couple of clips, and that removed the battery box. So the dog can see the rabbit. We have our gearbox mount here. We have our gear linkage cables here. We have what looks to be the gearbox fill at the top, or a fill. We can see the master cylinder down here, the slave cylinder, sorry. If it was an external one, we could change it now in a few minutes. Because it's an internal one, I'll take the bladder gearbox out. So what you want to do is try and get as much done from the top as possible. Do not disconnect the gearbox mount yet. We can disconnect the gear linkage cable and possibly get to the 2 top bolts for the gearbox, but I just cannot see them. Everything's in the way. It's such a tight engine bay. Can't see anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and disconnect the gear linkage cables. Sometimes they have a push button, sometimes they just clip off depending on the style. These ones don't have a push button, or do they? Let me get some light on the situation. You can see it there. No, they don't appear to have a push button on it. So if you're careful, you should just be able to get a lever bar in there and twist the lever bar, hopefully. And the answer is nope. No, it's too big, the bar. There we go. So it's got the bar in and twisted it. And didn't do any damage. Lovely. See if we can do the other one. I don't think we're going to have the room. Oh, we do. Yeah, so they're disconnected. They're still going to be connected to the gearbox, and it's normally by a bracket which normally has 3 bolts on, or they have special clips in them that you have to twist. I always prefer to take the bracket off because them twist style locks can break and cause you all sorts of problems. So I always like to take the 3 bolts off and remove the whole carrier. It's just easier. Now, there's nothing more I can show you from the top. I'm going to try and see if I can get the 2 top bolts from here. Then we'll lift it up and do the drive shafts. Okay, we are underneath. We've taken the tyres off and we've taken off the bottom cover. That's all. And yes, I know the brakes are really bad. And I know there's an oil leak here, but I'm going to tell the customer, but that's all I can do. So don't need more abusive comments down below because there's nothing I can do about it. And I know I'm going to get some people, you didn't show us taking off the tyres, or thumbs down, and you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, to you people, I call you a gee. It's a beautiful word, and Irish people will get that. So yeah. Right, what I'm going to do is, because we have to take the subframe down for this job if we was taking the gearbox out. Now, on some of the Fords, the Mark III Fords, you have to take the subframe down, but I've done them without having to take the subframe down, even changing the clutch. Yes, it is a bit annoying, but it's possible. The less I can take down and take off, the better, especially when it comes to big, huge bolts and subframes and stuff like that, because if they round, if they're rusty, it just causes a massive problem for everyone concerned. So because I'm only changing the actual slave cylinder or the release bearing, whatever you want to call it, I don't really have to, I only have to get enough room to get my hand in there, release the 3 bolts. So what I should be able to do is maybe loosen this side of the subframe and just push the gearbox to the side. I'm not even going to take off this drive shaft. I'm going to take off this drive shaft and I'm going to drain the oil now in a second. The oil drain plug is down here and there is an oil fill plug here. Well, there's actually an oil level plug and there's an oil fill plug at the top, but that doesn't matter. You can still fill it from here. So what I'm going to do is we'll take out the oil. Again, there's no point me showing you that. It's just, then I'm going to take off the pendulum mounts. There's one on the front and there's one on the back. That will, the gearbox will still be supported by the top mount. You can see here, let's just get you closer. You can see that's where it's actually leaking from. This is the front pendulum mount, the rear pendulum mount. Once I take them off, I'll show you and tell you what size bolts they were and stuff. But as you can see, we don't really have enough room just to push the gearbox this side without lowering this a little bit. So I might have to lower it a little bit just to give me enough room to get my hand in there. So yeah, lovely jubbly. We do have to then take off this drive shaft. So what I'm going to do is take off this first, which is the oil drain. And once I've done that, we'll turn the camera back on. Oh, I'm also going to take off these mounts. So once I've done that, I'll turn the camera back on. Now, to release the oil out of the gearbox, you need a 10mm Allen key. Now, this is a normal socketed 10mm Allen key, and even though it's a 3/8, I can't get the 3/8 ratchet in. Now, I do happen to have another set, a really short reach, which I could put this in and easily get the ratchet on there. But not everyone's going to have that, because it's essentially 2 things that do the same thing, and you know, you're basically doubling the price of a set. So what you can do, just get a 10mm spanner, put it on, put the socket back in, and there you go. You can actually loosen the bolt and continue on with life. Sorted. Right, what I'm going to do, just to make it easier for everyone, I'm going to try and keep this to a 1-part video. So I'm just going to show you what you need to remove and then remove it off camera. 32mm socket here, 18mm, and then this 18mm bolt there for the track rod end, and then there's 2 18mm bolts. You can just see them here for the shock. Once you've done that, the actual front hub assembly and the brake will kind of flop forward and it'll allow you to get the drive shaft out. But do be careful of your brake line. Sometimes you have to release your brake line here. Also be careful of your ABS sensor or your pad sensors, depending on what you've got. Then all you need to do is get a bar in here and you just pop out the CV joint. Very simple. I'm not going to touch the CV joint that side. So once I've done that, we'll continue. Alright, what I'm going to do next is take off the 2 pendulum mounts, the bottom, front and rear gearbox mount, whatever you want to call them. There's a couple of inverted torques and a bolt on the front one, and looks to be 3 inverted torques and a nut and bolt on this one, plus there's a counterweight at the back of this one as well. So we'll take off them. Once I take off them, I'll tell you what sizes everything was. And then it's the ringer bolts around the gearbox. Sorted. Now I do have to wait till tomorrow to get the parts. That's the problem around here. I can't normally get the parts the same day. And especially with something like this is not a job that obviously they booked in. It broke down on them. And yeah, so it was a kind of a job that came in with no real way to, you know, prepare for it. Because normally if I do another job, I'll make sure I have the parts before I get the customer to come in. Blah, blah, makes it easier for everyone. You know what I mean? Okay, so on this one we had two E18s, so two inverted 18 Torx and a 16mm nut and bolt. And what I like to do, just to keep everything together, engine mount's a bit dodgy too, is just put everything back into the engine mount so you don't get it confused with any other bolts or anything like that. That was obviously also two of the gearbox bolts as well. The rear one's the same, more or less. Looks to have three inverted Torx and only one nut and bolt on it. So that's the next one we're going to be taking off. But keep it all together like that, you won't lose anything. Right, another quick tip. This inverted E18 is too close to the exhaust, so I can't get any socket in there. You need the spanner style. I used to have a set, but my old shed got robbed and lots of tools got robbed, and you know, just one of them things, never could afford to replace them. So, laddie lorries. What you can do, 14mm, ordinary 14mm spanner. Now you do have to be careful. If it's really, really tight, don't keep going because you'll damage it. But this should come off with a 14mm. There we go. So, a 14mm spanner on an inverted E18 will take it off. The only thing that might not come off is the actual bolt because it might hit the exhaust, but if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Doesn't look like it's going to be honest. No, it's not going to move. So, but once we push the gearbox to that side, we will be able to get it out. But because of that now, I don't know if I should really bother taking the whole thing off. Hopefully it won't get in my way. So I'm not going to take it off. But what I am going to do is we've still got one, two at the bottom. Again, I'll try and get you in there once I take that off. Let me just take this other bolt out first and we'll continue. Right, unfortunately, I just cannot get in there. I can't even get the camera in there. Can we see? There you go. You can just see the E18 bolt there and then the starter motor directly above that, right next to the oil filter housing. And then we've got the gear linkage cables right up there. You can just see them. Again, I'm just not going to be able to film it because I can barely see anything myself. So never mind, film it. Then we've got two more E18 bolts at the top. I've taken out two of the smaller E12s, one there and one just above the exhaust manifold. But as you can see, there's no way I can film that. I'm not going to take this completely down today because I've got to wait for the part tomorrow. I don't want the gearbox to be resting on this all night, and I also don't want the engine to be unsupported. So I'm going to take the ringer bolts off, the start motor, the gear links cables, and I'm going to leave it at that. Then all we've got to do is disconnect the top gearbox mount. The gearbox then should come down 2 or 3 inches and should move over here. Whether I've got enough room to do it then, I don't know. I might have to release this side of the subframe, just lower the bolts about halfway, just enough to maybe push the gearbox on top of this. We'll have to wait and see to give me enough room to get in. But like I said, I don't want to do all that and leave this hanging overnight. I'd rather it being supporting itself overnight. When I get the new part in the morning, we'll continue. So that's all I can really do with it today once I've taken off these few bolts, and then tomorrow. Lovely. Right, unfortunately I had to turn the camera off because there was a bit of a language problem. This was a nightmare. Whoever designed it needs a bullet. Now I missed a couple of bolts underneath, which I will show you. We've got the engine mount off. Didn't really need to disconnect the gear linkage because obviously I'm not dropping the box. Didn't really think about that at the time. But anyway, so you don't really need to disconnect them. There was another bolt in the middle here, which again I could barely see, so there's no way I could film it. I'll show you what the engine mounts look like. We also had to disconnect the expansion bottle to get more room. I also had to disconnect the EGR valve. There was three 10mm or three 13mm bolts and two 5mm Allen keys, and then you can get to the back top bolt of the starter motor. There's 3 bolts on the starter motor, essentially one from underneath, one on the top, and one right at the back of the engine, which is a nightmare. Again, I'm not going to be able to get you in there because I couldn't really see myself, I could just feel it, but a nightmare of a place to put it. So now our gearbox should be free. We've still got our drive shaft connector, which might cause us a problem. But let's get to the gearbox mounts and show you what they look like. So the actual rubber mount, we had 3 E18 inverted Torx and 4 E12 Torx. And at the back of it, we had a 13mm nut, which you have to get from the wheel arch side. That will allow the actual rubber mount to come off. And then we just had a plate on here with 3 E18 Torx as well. The reason I took that plate off, it just makes the gearbox a bit thinner so it can slide in the hole a lot easier. Because we don't need a lot of room, just enough room to get the 3 bolts out for it, and that's really it. We don't have to line up the clutch, you don't have to do anything like that. Obviously, you know, the customer does know that if the fingers are bent or damaged on the pressure plate, well then this isn't going to last long, but again, I can only do what I can do and what I've been told to do. So, you know, the customer knows all the risks and has accepted it. So that's that. What we need to do now is lift it up. I'll show you the bolts underneath that I didn't see. There was one on the back mount and there was one just near the exhaust. Again, they were 2 what were they? I think they were E18s or E14s. We'll figure that out in a minute. And then hopefully we can slide this gearbox back. But as you can see, the gearbox has split open a little bit. It's now resting on the subframe. Before you take off the gearbox mount, obviously support the engine and the gearbox with a jack and let it down slowly. The first bolt I missed was just up here. It was an E18 inverted torque. And the second one, you can't quite see, is just here on the rear mount. There was 3, not 2, and that was it really. So what I'm going to do now is try and slide this gearbox open. We can see we haven't got a lot of room here, and when we look down there, we get some light on the situation. We don't really have a lot of room here either. You can see that a bit better like that. But all I'm going to be worried about at the minute is just trying to separate that gearbox. I've got the drive shaft in as well, which isn't really helping, but we'll see if we can separate it first. Now, I'm not going to be forcing this. I'm just going to be very gently doing it, kind of lifting up the gearbox and wiggling it. If I have to force it, there's a problem. It's stuck somewhere, something's happening, so don't force it. Just kind of let it go nice and easy back. Last thing you want to do is to be forcing it. It appears to be stuck on something, and I think it's the drive shaft, to be honest. About ½ an inch all the way around, so we're still on the splines of the gearbox and the clutch, which we need to release. I managed to get it off. I supported the engine with the transmission jack, and we've managed to get it disconnected. And as I thought, it was kind of stuck on the drive shaft. So it's going to be an absolute nightmare to get this back in with the drive shaft in the way. So I do kind of suggest taking the drive shaft off. But we'll give it a go, trying to put it back in with the drive shaft on, but I don't know how we're going to. Oh. Can you see that? That's the ball bearings. Hopefully I caught that on camera. That's the ball bearings coming out of the slave cylinder, release bearing, whatever you want to call it. Loads of them. Now, I'm going to definitely have to drop the subframe on this side, because with it being a dual mass flywheel, it's a lot thicker than a standard flywheel. So, hopefully, I can drop it enough. I really don't want to have to take the subframe down. If I have to, I will, but I really hope I don't. What I'm going to do is going to get the camera set up in a better situation, get my other transmission jack, and get everything ready to lower this down, to push this gearbox. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight, but hopefully we can do it. We'll find out in a few minutes. Right, I got my second transmission jack up here. We had 4 E18 bolts. So we had one here, one in between, you can get it from going inside the wishbone, and we had a triangle plate on the back, you just can't quite see, but 3 there. I've taken out this one and the back 3, and I've half screwed out the middle one to just kind of keep it there for me. So what I should be able to do now is slowly, hopefully, release this transmission jack. I was hoping it would come down, but it hasn't. So I might have to release the other ones, and I was afraid of that because the exhaust and everything, this is just turning in to be a nightmare. What we caught on there? Caught on something. Right. If I get this one down all the way, maybe. Maybe this one's getting stuck somehow. I don't know. Very rusty, that. That's why I don't like taking down subframes. Because it can turn into a nightmare. Now it has come down a bit, just not as much as I was hoping. But, oh, you little fucking bastard! Oh! Holy. Oh, the gearbox just dropped right out of my finger. Oh, you fucker. Oh. Ow. Ooh. Wow, it's actually squashed my nail. Another thing, don't be as stupid as me and get a proper job. I'm too stupid to do anything else. And you don't have to deal with this shit. No, we're close now. Just need half an inch more Oh, can I see a load of metal bits in there? No, but I can see, I can see one of the bolts. So, looks like they're going to be T30 Torx, maybe T40, can't quite tell yet, but we don't need much more room, people. I think we're going to be able to do this. I think. What I'm going to do is keep wiggling this and keep swearing and seeing if my thumb or my finger is still attached. Once I get it back a bit further, I'll turn the camera back on. Good news, everybody! As you can see, we was right with the diagnosis. The slave cylinder, release bearing, whatever you want to call it, has blown up. There's 3 T30 torque bolts holding it to the gearbox. Obviously, we're going to blow the airline in there, blow all the ball bearings out, give it a really good clean. The clutch fingers look to be in good order. They're fairly flat, so the clutch I'd say is okay, but again, I've warned the customer, it's not my thing for this video, unfortunately. I've wedged a piece of wood there. I disconnected the drop link and I screwed 2 of the bolts off the far side, just loosened them. It gave me enough room to get in here. My drive shaft is still kind of in, which is good. It's going to make it easier for me to line it back up. Once I get that out, before we get that out, I'm going to have to go to the top of the gearbox again and take off the little plate, or not the little T adapter that is holding on this, because that's also a bleed nipple. That has to come off. That won't go through the gearbox. I'll show you that once I get it off. And here we go. It's out. And as you can see, it came out in 3 bits. Just absolutely destroyed. This was the T-piece slash bleeder I was talking about. Just a little clip that I've just dropped. No, I haven't. It's there. Just pull that out. That disconnects from this end and it allows you to take it out. And as you can see, this is the rest of it. Not the most ideal way to do it, but because we're just changing this, it's the quickest way rather than taking everything off, whether you agree or disagree, but it is. And wait for the new heart and stick it in. I'm going to clean the gearbox now, make sure it's, there's no of the balls left in it. These were some of the balls that came out. Make sure there's none left in it, clean up all the crap, all the oil and everything, ready to put the new fella on. Sorted. Okay, we have the new one, which is lovely, shiny and everything. It's so tempting to press that down, but do not press it down. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, this is not going to be a how-to video. This is just going to be some of the problems you could potentially run into. It's caused me a nightmare. Delays, as always, usual stuff, a lot of stuff happening, and yeah, just taking too long to film this particular one. So I'm just going to leave it there and just give you an idea of what you might run into by doing this clutch. I'm going to let Thomas tell you how to put everything back together. Go and check him out. I'll leave the link to his channel down below. So yeah, sorted.
No need for me to show you how to do it, he says. It's as simple as that, he says. Well, if you were able to remove everything, even after watching this video, and you're looking for installation instructions, and I quote, "Installation is in reverse of removal." It really is as simple as that.
Okay, I've just bled it. I haven't got it all back together yet, as you can see. But as you can see, it's holding pressure, which it never did before. It just released really quickly. So let's see what the pedal feels like. Moment of truth. First time pushing. Is it going to go to the floor? Is it going to feel good? I think we've still got a bit of bleeding to do, but at least it's getting better now, yeah. There we go. Lovely! We have a clutch, but for how long? Well, that's anyone's guess. Right, let's see if this bad boy starts. and all the lights go out. That's normally the first good thing. Let's put my foot on the clutch, put it in gear. Does it roll forward? Hey! There we go. She moves. She moves. Right, I'm going to take this for a test drive, and just got to hope for the best. Customer's been warned, and that's it. Alright, let's see what happens. There we go. It works. Done what the customer asked. It's driving. That's all I can do. Sorted. So look, hope it helps. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget, links up here, links down below. Check out my Facebook, Instagram, Patreon and all that. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.